Dr. Harpreet Kaur from Army Institute of Law, Mohali. The topic of the day is Concept of Social Justice Embodied in the Indian Constitution, a Study. Introducing the topic. Primarily, the term social justice was used to emphasize equal distribution of resources. But nowadays, the term is used in a much broader sense. It implies equitable distribution of resources along with equality of treatment and opportunity to all without any consideration of factors like caste, class, religion, gender, origin or any of the factors that divide the society. Opposing it does not mean that special provisions made for those in need of development will amount to breach of rule of social justice. Rather, it is an enabling aspect of the concept of social justice. Thus, social justice is not an us versus them. Rather, it is a we are in it together mentality. It is the identification of where our privileges intersect with somebody else's oppression. Social justice takes within its sweep the objective of removing all inequalities and affording equal opportunities to all citizens in social affairs as well as economic activities. The word justice is derived from French word justice, which means uprightness, equity and vindication of right. It is as old as civilization and society. As enunciated by Plato, a Greek philosopher, justice means giving everyone their due share. Consequently, social justice would mean giving everyone their due share in society through social arrangements. The concept of social justice has several dimensions. It is bedrock of all legal systems. Social justice as understood today by scholars means that every human being has a right to equitable treatment. Originally, it was meant to emphasize the economic aspect only, but now it has encompassed its scope to all possible spheres of society. In the Indian context, Dr. B. R. Ambedkar was one of the key philosophers of this concept. He believed that the ideal of social justice could be achieved only by providing constitutional status to certain provisions. However, despite such textual and descriptive provisions, the challenges to social justice have still not cut back. Social justice still seems like a term unknown to certain section of society. Social domination still gropes the society. Thus, the realities are not in compliance with the aims. Social justice, its meaning. Social justice is closely related to the concept of socialism and revolutionary communism. Originated during the Industrial Revolution, it consists of principle of equality, equity, access to resources and human rights. Social justice can be achieved by people through protest, riots, activism, etc. People can work for social justice by taking up social work, victim advocate, community developer and such other professions. The governments work towards social justice by integrating in its governance, law, policies, etc. Many governments establish a dedicated social justice ministry. India tries to achieve social justice through its dedicated Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, subsidy schemes for marginalized communities, articles having social justice underlined in the Constitution and movements such as the farmers' protest. As per United Nations, social justice may be broadly understood as the fair and compassionate distribution of the fruits of the economic growth. As per the National Association of Social Workers, social justice is the view that every person deserves equal economic, political and social rights and opportunities. The key and defining elements in every definition of social justice are fairness and equalities. Now, coming to the principles of social justice. Social justice is a multi-dimensional concept, but the underlying goal of all dimensions is usually fairness and inclusion. In order to achieve this goal, following sets of principles is established. First is access, equal access to social goods, resources, education, healthcare and employment. Second is equity, distribution of resources or social order in a way that addresses the specific needs of underprivileged communities or people. Next is diversity. Not only there should be women and people of color in position of power, but also the minority communities to prevent discrimination. Next is participation. Everyone should have a voice in making important decisions, either by themselves or by the representatives. Next is human rights. Final principle and most arguably includes freedom of conscience, freedom from police abuse and bodily autonomy. Social justice in Indian context. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the chief architect of the Indian Constitution, were a great crusader of equality and social justice. Social justice, according to him, was a basic requirement for achieving the goals of social harmony. He believed this could be achieved only through removal of inequalities against deprived and depressed ones in social order. The inequality in Indian society of those days was not only economic in character but also social and political in nature. He favored a total revolution against the social evils of Indian society. He was highly critical of existing social order in Indian society since it promoted inequality. So, he came up with an alternative model of social order based upon principles of social justice. Ambedkar believed that the ideal of social justice could be achieved by providing constitutional status to such provisions which would force those in power to take measures for achievement of this goal. He laid down a detailed plan of provisions which would offer a sure safeguard to depressed classes of Indian society. He believed that these would go a long way in better recognition of these classes at social levels and would also help them in their economic upliftment. This was his major contribution in acquiring social justice to all those classes which had been victims of injustice for centuries. The Constitution of India has thus ingrained the spirit of social justice into its provisions. The preamble of the Indian Constitution mentions three kinds of justice: social, political and economic. All of these are interconnected. Social justice and equality are complementary to each other. The welfare state concept and socialistic features of the Constitution and Indian economy are also a step towards social justice. Many directive principles of the state policy, fundamental rights embody the principle of social justice. Some of them are as follows. First is right to equality given under Article 14, 16, 17 and 18. Next is right to education given under Article 21A of the Constitution. Next is cultural and educational rights, Article 29 and 30. Next is right against exploitation given under Article 23 and 24. Next is promotion of social welfare given under Article 38 of the Constitution. Next is distribution of resources as per government goods, Article 39. Just and human working condition given under Article 42 of the Constitution. Promotion of educational and economic interest of scheduled caste, scheduled tribe and other weaker sections, Article 46. All these provisions are constitutional embodiments of the principle of social justice and reflects our constitutional missions for the same. Now, I will be discussing social justice and the preamble of the Constitution of India. Justice, social, economic and political are a triune phenomena inscribed as a pledge in the preamble glory of our Constitution. Economic democracy has a crimson material complexion and expressively emphasizes a socialistic democracy. The preamble secures social justice to all citizens of India. Justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and opportunity. the Constitution of India professed to secure to the citizens social, economic and political justice. Social justice means the abolition of all sorts of inequities which may result from the inequalities of wealth, opportunity, status, race, religion, caste, title and the like. To achieve this ideal of social justice, the Constitution lays down the directives for the state in Part 4 of the Constitution. The word socialism in the preamble of the Constitution was expressly brought in the Constitution to establish an egalitarian social order through rule of law as its basic structure. In case of Minerva Mills Limited versus Union of India, EIR 1980 Supreme Court, page number 1789, the Constitution bench had considered the meaning of word socialism to crystallize a socialistic state securing to its people socio-economic justice by interplay of the fundamental rights and the directive principles. Social rights through the fundamental right of the citizen. A social rights subject to social control as charted out in Part 3 of the Constitution. Social justice concerns with such rights as social impact which can be controlled from wider social perspective. Speaking broadly, every right has a social element. Man being a creature of the society, social justice concerns itself with the rights of social rather than of a person's nature. In case of Keshwanand Bharti versus State of Kerala, AIR 1973 Supreme Court, page number 1461, it was held that the fundamental rights and directive principles are supplement to each other and aims at the same goal about a social revolution and the establishment of a welfare state. The fundamental rights of our Constitution are social justice. It is mentioned in the preamble itself, justice, social, political and economic. Fundamental rights in India, nature and scope. Part 3 of the Constitution is said to contain the Bill of Rights for the people of India. They have been said to be the very foundation and the cornerstone of the democratic way of life ushered in this country by the Constitution. These rights have been declared as sacrosanct, inalienable and inviolable. It has been emphasized that fundamental rights are not to be treated in isolation. They have to be read along with the chapter of directive principles of state policy and the fundamental duties enshrined in Article 51A. The rights are to be kept in conformity with the changing socio-economic conditions. For the purpose, the Constitution confers power on the state, the constituent power, the power to amend the Constitution, including the fundamental rights. For example, the Constitution First Amendment 1951 amended the provision relating to fundamental rights. Social justice through fundamental rights of the citizens. The fundamental rights which are secured by the Constitution of India are grouped under the following heads. First is right to equality given under Article 14 to 18. Second is right to freedom given under Article 19 to 22. Third is right to education under Article 21A, and next is right against exploitation, Article 23 and 24. Right to freedom of religion given under Article 25 to 28 of the Constitution. Cultural and educational rights of minorities given under Article 29 and 30, and right to constitutional remedies given under Article 32 of the Constitution. Now discussing fundamental rights are available against the state. According to the philosophy behind fundamental rights, they are available only against the state, for there are limitations upon the power of the government, legislative as well as executive. It is against the might of the state that an individual needs constitutional protection conceptually. The fundamental rights are available only against the state. However, there are provisions in Part 3 of the Constitution which imposes limitation upon the action of private individuals as well. For example, Article 15 Clause 2, Article 17, 18 Clause 2, Article 23 Clause 1 and Article 24. As regard these provisions, the Supreme Court in case of People's Union for Democratic Rights versus Union of India, AIR 1982 Supreme Court 1473 ruled that it was the constitutional obligation of the state of takes necessary steps for the purpose of interdicting such violations and ensuring observation of the fundamental rights by the private individual who was transgressing the same. The first fundamental right secured to the people of India is the right to equality. It is contained in Article 14 to 18. These provisions are discussed under the following heads. First is equality before law or equal protection of law given under Article 14. Second is prohibition against discrimination against citizens, Article 15. Third is equality of opportunity in public employment given under Article 16. Fourth is abolition of unsociability given under Article 17, and last is abolition of titles given under Article 18. Next, coming to directive principle of state policy under Article 35 to 51, and they provide social, economic and political justice. Part 4 of the Constitution set forth the ideals and objectives to be achieved by the states for setting up in India a social welfare state, which aims at social welfare and the common goods and to secure to all its citizens justice, social and economic. The inspiration for including in Constitution such principle is drawn from the Constitution of Ireland in year 1937. Coming to the object and purpose behind the directive principle is to bring social welfare in the state. The founding fathers were aware of the drawbacks the country had been suffering from, such as poverty, unemployment and lack of education, social, economic and political backwardness. They, in order to eradicate these evils, set forth in the very preamble the ideals and objectives to be achieved. The intention was to establish in India a democracy, political, economic and social. To achieve this cherished goal, the trainers were unanimous to secure to the people practically all the prevailing political, social and economic rights. The effect of the insertion of Article 31C was to provide supremacy for directive principles contained in Article 39B and C over the fundamental rights contained in Article 14, 19 and 31. I will be discussing promotion of social justice order, in which social, economic and political justice. The case is State of Mysore versus Worker of Gold Mines, AIR 1958, Supreme Court, page number 923. The judgment was given by Justice Gijendra Gadkar. He has observed that social and economic justice have been given a place of pride in our Constitution. Article 38 clause 1 and 43 of the Constitution. Article 38 clause 1 provides the state shall strive to promote the welfare of people by securing and protecting as effectively as it may a social order in which justice, social, economic and political shall inform all the institutions of national life. Clause 2 of Article 38, which was inserted by Constitution 44th Amendment Act of 1978, further requires the state shall in particular strive to minimize inequalities, income and endeavour to eliminate inequalities in status, facilities and opportunities not only amongst individual but also amongst group of people residing in different areas or engaged in different vocations. Article 43 enunciate another directive principle by providing that the state shall endeavour to secure by suitable legislation or economic origination or in any other way to all worker, agriculture, industrially or otherwise worth a living wage condition of work, ensuring a decent standard of life and full enjoyment of leisure and social and cultural opportunities. Supreme Court emphasized that the concept of social and economic justice is a living concept of revolutionary import, which gives a substance to the rule of law and meaning and significance to the ideal of a welfare state. Article 39 provides the state shall in particularly direct its policies towards securing that the citizens, men and women, equally have the right to an adequate means of livelihood, that the ownership and control of the material resources of the community are so distributed as best to subserve the common good, that the operation of the economic system does not result in concentration of wealth and means of production to the common detriment, that there is a equal pay for equal work for both men and women, that the health and strength of the worker, men and women, and the tender age of children are not abused, and the citizens are not forced by economic necessity to enter avocations unsuited to their age or strength. Those children are given opportunities and facilities to develop in a healthy manner and in conditions of freedom and dignity, and that childhood and youth are protected against exploitation and against moral and material abandonment. Equal justice and free legal aid given under Article 39A. Article 39A obligates the state to secure that operation of legal system promotes justice on the basis of equal opportunity and shall in particular provide free legal aid by suitable legislation or social justice, provision in Indian constitution schemes or in any other way to ensure that opportunities for securing justice are not denied to any citizen by reason of economic or other disabilities. The directive principles was inserted by the Constitution 42nd Amendment Act of 1976. Article 39A promotes justice on the basis of equal opportunity. Now, I will be discussing other provisions of social justice under the Constitution of India. First is the fundamental duties regarding social justice, which is given under Article 51A to protect and improve its natural environment including forests, lakes, river and wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures. Lake, rivers and wildlife, and to have compassion for the living creatures. To develop the scientific temper, humanism and the spirit of inquiry, a parent or guardian to provide opportunity for education to his child, or as the case may be, ward between the age of 6 to 14 years. These duties have been added to implement the recommendation of the Swayam Prabha Committee reported in 1976. These duties are intended to create psychological consciousness among the citizens and are of mere educative value. Object and importance of fundamental duties. The fundamental duties have been incorporated in the Constitution with the mere object to remind every citizen that while enforcing his fundamental right, he must also be conscious of his fundamental duties. These duties, it is said, would help to strengthen our democracy. These provisions are made for the enforcement of fundamental duties. Article 330, reservation of seats for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe in the House of People. Article 332, reservation of seats for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in the legislative assemblies of the state. Article 334, reservation of seats and special representation in legislative assemblies and House of People to cease after 50 years. Article 335, claim of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe to service and post. The claim of the members of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe shall be taken into consideration consistently with the maintenance of efficiency of administration in the making of appointments to service and post in connection with the affairs of union or a state. Article 338, National Commission for Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes. Article 339, control of the union over the administration of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, and Article 340, appointment of the commission by the president to investigate the conditions of backward classes. Article 341, power of the president to specify the caste, races or tribes or post of or group within the caste, race or tribes as scheduled caste. Now, we have a well known social justice movement known as Black Lives Matter. This movement was started in United States of America. It was triggered by the event of George Floyd's death, a black man who was choked to death by 2 white police officers. This movement was against the systematic racial discrimination and violence faced by the black community. The movement encompassed issues of social, judicial, economic and political discrimination faced by the black community throughout their lives and in every aspect of their lives. It also brought forth the effect of white supremacy in systems across the world. This movement brought forth a massive number of people across the world to protest on the street and on social media in solidarity with the movement. It is one of the essential movements towards racial inequality and social justice. The next is Me Too movement. Me Too movement was founded to bring awareness of sexual violence faced by the people. It is a social justice movement that succeeded in bringing the rampant sexual violence in the society into the limelight and driving suitable changes in society and policy to address the issue. It was also a solidarity movement by survivors of sexual violence to support and give courage to each other. It resulted in many coming forward with their story and naming their abusers. This was one of the most impactful movement in the feminist movement. Fridays for the Future movement, also known as School Strike Movement for Climate, it is an international movement against climate change. In support of this movement, school students skip Friday classes to participate in protest and awareness movements to demand action from political leaders against climate change. It was started by the students activist Greta Thunberg, who staged a protest outside the Swedish parliament. It gained international traction and many students skipped classes to protest peacefully. This is a significant movement in social justice and environmental activism. Next is the farmers' protest. Farmers' protest in India started against the 3 farm laws introduced by the government. As per the farmer leaders, the farmers' community concerned were the effect these laws would have on the minimum selling price, that is MSP, and the agriculture produce marketplace. The 3 farm laws did not include the safety net of MSP, and the entry of private players could disband the mandis. The fear of dominance of big corporate houses was also a matter of concern. The farmer organized themselves into groups and came on the streets demanding the removal of the farm laws. Farmers from every part of country led this protest and even gained international support. This movement led to the establishment of dialogue between the farmer community and the union government, and later on to the withdrawal of the laws. The next movement is the Nirbhaya movement. The horrific gang rape incident in the national capital shook the country with anger. Many people went on candle march to call for justice for the victim and strict punishment for the rapist. The public demanded a safer world for women and a harsher law on crime against women. India has one of the highest rate of crime against women. The pressure from the public and international community led to widening the definition of rape, stricter punishments and creation of new offences in the Indian Penal Code. Concluding this topic, I can say in India, courts have performed a great role to make the social justice successful. In the field of distributive justice, legislature and judiciary both are playing great role, but courts are playing more powerful role to deliver compensatory or corrective justice, but these principles are known as mutually relatives, not mutually opposite. Ideals and goals are to deliver social justice. Medium may be distributive or compensatory justice. The adopted type may be of equality, necessity, equality, freedom, common interest or other. Although the Supreme Court has not found any possible definition of social justice, but has accepted it as an essential and an organ of legal system. Despite the well-intentioned commitment of ensuring social justice through equalization or protective discrimination policy, the governmental effort have caused some tension in the society. In the names of social justice, even such activities are performed which have nothing to do with social justice. The need of ours is to ensure the proper and balanced implementation of policies so as to make social justice an effective vehicle of social progress. The preamble of the Constitution read with directive principle in Article 38, 42, 43, 46 and 48A promotes the concept of social justice. The aim of social justice is to attain a substantial degree of social, economic and political equality. It is a device to mitigate the sufferings of the poor, weak, tribals and the deprived section of society and to elevate them so that they can live with dignity. In course of time, the courts have raised social and economic justice to the high level of a fundamental right. The preamble, the fundamental rights and the directive principles have been characterized as the trinity of the Constitution. The system of vote catching in Indian democratic setup did not allow to downtrodden people, that is socially and economically backward society, to come out from the dark to light. Thus, our so-called legislative, that is elected representatives, never made an attempt to follow the Indian Constitution in practice. It is the main cause that the country could not show good result in implementation and enforcement of the directive principles of state policy nicely enshrined in the most modern constitution of the world. Due to non-implementation of the directive principles of the state policy, the real victims are the people of this country. I hope you like this lecture. Thank you and have a nice day.